Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and I like sharing news stories if they have to do with topics that I make videos about. And I saw this shared yesterday, and thanks Dave, I thought this was pretty interesting. And I'm always a little dubious of where I get my information from as far as ancient Egypt and information, and this comes from International Business Times, our science department. And I think I'll just read a little bit. It says, discovery of 7,000-year-old Egyptian city could shed light on the Nile Valley's earliest civilizations. Archaeologists believe the site in the southern province of Sohag dates back to the time of the First Dynasty. Well, if it was 7,000 years old, then it's a couple thousand years older than the First Dynasty. And they got a picture here from the Valley of the Kings area on their story. And it says, archaeologists in Egypt have discovered the ruins of an ancient city and an adjoining cemetery that date back 7,000 years to 5316 BC. According to a statement by the Antiquities Ministry, the site can be traced back to Egypt's First Dynasty. Well, that's actually a couple thousand years older than the First Dynasty. A couple thousand years older than the First Dynasty. That doesn't trace back to the First Dynasty. That goes back to a time they call pre-dynastic and just kind of gloss over it. It says, the find was made in the province of Sohag and is situated 400 meters away from the King Seti I temple at Abydos City, Egypt Independent reported. It says, remains of the huts, stone tools, and pottery were found, indicating that the residential city supplied the labor force which could have been used for the construction of royal tombs. The cemetery featured 15 large graves, which, according to Hani Abdul Azim, the head of the Central Administration of Upper Egypt Antiquities, could have belonged to high-ranking officials. And it's 7,000 years old. They say the First Dynasty of Egypt started a little over 5,000 years ago. The discovery is of particular significance because it could provide insight on Abydos, one of ancient Egypt's oldest cities. Based on earlier research, Abydos is considered to have been the capital of ancient Egypt towards the end of the pre-dynastic period, the time before recorded history from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic age. It says, the size of the graves discovered in the cemetery is larger, in some instances, than royal graves in Abydos dating back to the First Dynasty, and I have made videos where Pharaoh Den and a few others are buried in tombs that are really non-descriptive and just sitting out there in the middle of the desert of Abydos. So let's just jump over to Google Earth and take a peek. Now we are going to go down into Abydos here, and this is where it is located down here in upper or southern Egypt. And this is the region that it occupies, and there are a few things down here that I want to point out. First of all, the site that they are looking at, I am assuming is right here, and I made a video on the Osirion in this area not too long ago. But this, I said, looks extremely ancient, and I guess findings have indicated this area is 7,000 years old. And this structure, I'm not sure if we're getting the true story on that one. But down here, this is the temple of King Seti I, and it's built right here in a much typical style coming from about 3,000 plus years ago. I think he was in the 19th dynasty. But here, behind the Temple of Seti, much lower, that they dug out, is the Osirian Temple, which matches the construction of the Valley Temple right in front of the Sphinx. And I think clearly the Osirian and what we call the Valley Temple in front of what we call the Sphinx today, which was ancient Anubis in ancient times, I think they were built at the exact same time because they are exactly similar in building construction. And it is much different than Seti's temple up here. Clearly, I think there is 6,000 years at least of difference in time here we are talking about. And if we back out what from the ancient records, what is the original god of Abydos? It was Anubis. And what is this mountain called right here? From the earliest records we have, it is the Mountain of Anubis. And I have made a video about that, and I will leave some links below. And I made a video on the Osirian here, and how it's dug out. And I made this about maybe 4 months ago. And I show how clearly on this dugout area there is water erosion, exactly like the Sphinx enclosure. It seems these were built at the same time. And from the Egyptian text, it seems that these places up at Giza and what we call the Osirian down in Abydos are connected through ancient text. And it's about a journey down the Nile. And it's really an allegoric tale of a journey through the heavens. And they associate it to their afterlife. And this temple right here down at Abydos, and what we know as the Valley Temple in front of the Sphinx, are connected in ancient text. I just wanted to point that out. But this place is very old. This neighboring area up here, the southern, or the Upper Antiquities Ministry in Egypt, remember Upper is southern Egypt, are admitting this is 7,000 years old. So good for them for providing some truthful information, it sounds. I think they might be starting to push the history back a little farther in Egypt, and that would be wonderful. But I just wanted to point out one other thing down here. Now, just about, looks like a couple miles down from King Seti's temple in Abydos, there is this right here. And I am not sure what we are looking at. This looks like a lost, very, very ancient structure. Is this just collapsed? The stones are taken away. Is this an ancient pyramid? Well, it seems to have things built out in front of it here. And maybe on the other Google Earth there is some documentation with this, but I just don't have time to look for it. But I just thought this area in Abydos is really interesting, because this looks like a very, very ancient structure of some sort. And that is perfectly aligned to north right now. But I just find this whole area extremely interesting. And I don't know what this structure is, but that doesn't seem to be natural at all. And there seems to be a temple built off the front of it that really they're not really impeding on. But somebody wants to tell me what that is, I'd appreciate it. But they are admitting that there is a 7,000-year-old city just north of King Seti's temple. That is ancient Abydos. I like the fact that we are starting to get some very old dates coming from archaeology in Egypt. Hope you thought that was interesting, and you all have a very nice day.